And then from there, going to some of the ideas that essentially led me to working in Strata and how that kind of came about. And then I'm going to go into the actual demo portion, start talking about Strata and how it aims to solve problems with sound design for games and how it can be used as a learning tool. So I'll spend some time talking about,
yeah, that sounds great.
Like from that angle. I mean, I think that's the audience, right? So
yeah,
like,
yeah, I think that'll work really well. I think if we explain to the students a little bit of what makes Strata a little different than other sound effects libraries and sort of some of the game audio challenges that it solves as a sound designer is going to be amazing.
Yeah, cool.
I think that'll give students a good look at
Everyone have a great show. Here we go. In 5, 4, 3.
Welcome everybody.
Let's start that from the top.
Sure.
So we're going to, at the count of 5, we're going to play the 10 and then to cam 1. Sorry. After the count of 5, we're going to go to an intro, and then I'm going to count you from the intro to you. All right, so ready, stand by in black, ready, GFX. All right, here we go. In 5, have a great show, everyone. Have 5, 4, 3, 2. We are muted.
Welcome everybody. My name is Thomas Owen. I'm one of the department chairs for Recording Arts Department at Full Sail University. And I'm here with one of our graduates, Chase Steele, who's coming from Audiokinetic today to tell us a little bit about, one, what he's doing at Audiokinetic, and two, a little bit about some new platforms that they have for sound design, in particular for video games. It's one of the focuses of our audio production degree program and our recording arts degree program. And I'd like to welcome Chase. Chase, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is really loved games, of course. So I don't remember like how far into the program it was. I feel like it was pretty close to the end of the program when we had the it was at the time called interactive audio. And I think they were both interactive audio maybe.
There was a couple. There was an interactive audio, maybe an advanced interactive audio.
It was something like that. It wasn't explicitly game audio though.
Right.
So, when I got into those classes, it was really interesting, and I've always really been interested in the technical aspect of things. Even with music production, I'd spend equally amounts of time just trying to like design instruments. So it was already kind of like thinking in that direction. And you know, you were there at the time. You were one of my instructors, And getting close to the end of the program, I was starting to think about, okay, like what, I'm gonna graduate, so like, am I gonna go like move to Nashville or somewhere and try to like be an intern at a studio, or like what am I gonna do? And I don't know. I don't really remember like what the exact catalyst was. It was just that I'd been going through the classes. I'm like, this is really cool, and I was like, you know what? I think I need to, like, with the way the industry seemed to be developing, I'm like, I think I need to just like, switch over, and I need to like explore this more in depth. So pretty quickly, I started making a demo reel while I was in school. And I did, I don't know if it's still a thing, but there was an internship you could work with the game development students. So I did.
Do you remember the game project you worked on with game development? What type of project? What type of game?
There was like there's 3 of them. I don't remember the names of them, but one was kind of cool. It was like this. It was like you were a little astronaut on a meteor, and you were like so you were kind of traversing this ball. And so there's a lot of sci-fi design and stuff. It was actually pretty cool. I still have it in one of my reels. I still even show it now. It's pretty good. So I got done with that, and my lease on my apartment was about to be up, as everyone goes through that part. I was like, all right, well, and I also should mention that my wife is from Orlando, and I met her here.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, I'm about to like, I don't have anywhere to, I'm going to be out. Like I don't have a job yet, and I can't renew the lease. So I moved all the way back home, and before I had moved, I applied for a job at EA over in Maitland, so EA Tiburon, just to do QA.
Yep.
And I was going to be doing a little bit of QA with audio as well when I was in there. So I started that. That was okay, but at the end of the day, it wasn't really, I was like, well, this is some experience, but like I'm still looking for outlets to do sound design, okay? So I guess I could switch that over so that it's more relevant. So being that I was still working on demo reels and still applying for sound design roles, something sort of started happening around that 2014, 2015 timeline where independent sound libraries there just started to be like a huge amount of volume, people producing these independent sound libraries for film or games. There's a website, it's called A Sound Effect, that started taking off back at that time. And so I figured, well, I have to make demo reels to apply for jobs. So why don't I just, in the process of doing that, I'll make the demo reel with sounds that I'll then turn into a library. So I had this kind of like mechanism where, although I wasn't actively working on, a game project, I would made my own project, so to speak.
Do you remember what your first commercially released sound effects library? What did it contain? What types of sounds did you?
Metal.
Metal.
Metal recordings.
Impacts.
So, impacts like scrapes, that sort of thing. Because it was like, also part of it was the things that I would record, or things that I would pick out for my demo reel were things that was like, okay, I need to build up my personal library. And so there was a sense of logic. I tried to connect everything that I was doing to be like one common purpose. So the other thing, I did 2 QA contracts at EA. So that means there's like a period of 3 or 4 months where you're not working. I was starting to look for other supplemental income type things, and there was an interesting job that came up, the Orange County Public Library, to do basically audio production teaching to like the general public, and it was part-time. So I ended up like saying, when I was going to come back for the 3rd contract, I'm like, I have this part-time job. It's the weekend hours primarily. I have to do it because like it's financially I have to do it. So like if if we can make it all work, then I'll come. If not, then I'm going to do this, because just to be honest, it paid actually more part-time than what I was getting at QA then. So all that together, the teaching, making the sound libraries, and then I started adding this component after I had some experience teaching, where now I was like, okay, well, I'm making the libraries and making my demo reel. Let's break down the design and show it to people. So I started making sound design videos for a sound effect.
At the time when you were working for the Orlando Public Library, was that the time where a lot of indie game developers would sort of meet around that library? Were you around the time when there were some local sort of contributions of game development that happened around that library? Were you engaged in that at all?
Yeah, a little bit. There was the Indie Nomicon, I think is what it was, one of the meetups that was there. I did go to a few of those. I remember there being some weird scheduling stuff with that sometimes, but it was kind of a long time ago. And then I don't think they came back there after the pandemic either.
Yeah.
So,
so fast forward to today with your role at Audiokinetic. One, do you want to talk a little bit about sort of what you're currently doing today at Audiokinetic, and what also a little bit from behind, what sort of skills did you learn from maybe making instructional content for the library are you using today with the work that you're doing at Audiokinetic?
Yeah, so it really, the job at Audiokinetic was one of the most organic possible things that it's like you couldn't even make it up how it happened. But basically, as I was doing some work with a sound effect, I was doing just videos and talking about my libraries with them. I had this idea for actually a framework of something that was very similar to Strata, and I realized I was kind of workshopping the idea. I was like, is this something that I could take on myself? I feel like if I want to do this right, I need to this is a much bigger task. But it was, again, very similar to what they had envisioned. So I reached out to, my contact at a sound effect, and I was like, hey, I have this cool idea. Do you think, do you want to I'd rather do it with a sound effect than just try to do it on my own. And then he didn't say anything back to me. He forwarded my email to a few people at Audiokinetic, and then from there, it was just it became a very natural thing where I started doing a little bit of work for them at first prior to Strata's release. And then, I help with the marketing content, and I act sort of as a product expert. So we're going into, talk to different game developers and try to help them understand it and use it. That's part of my role. But then also, obviously, a lot of the sounds and the collections in the Strata library come from contributors, so third party. We're not developing the entire sound library in-house at Audiokinetic.
So for a student that's in audio production or recording arts that's just watching this for the first time, Audiokinetic is mostly known for its software Wwise,
right,
that has been on the market for 25 or so years and is the sort of leading middleware that's used for game audio.
Yes.
Now, Strata is a fairly new product for them, which you're going to show today, which is one of their first sort of outlets outside of just the Wwise platform. So should we start there with really sort of what Strata is a little bit, and
so
sort of how it relates to what Audiokinetic has been doing for the last 3 decades?
Yeah. Wwise, the software that Audiokinetic is known for, it's playing back the sounds inside the game engine. And there's, different events and things that happen in a nonlinear environment that when you're trying to use, or when you're trying to edit sounds in a DAW, there's always going to be some amount of prep work to get sounds that you have sourced or recorded yourself, or maybe another sound library that you've bought. So we were looking at it in a way where it's you don't really have control over some of the things that you need to from the start. So if there's, one of the examples I have is a magic spell where the spell is casting. So there's there needs to be a spell start. There needs to be a loop for the spell traveling through the air. There needs to be a loop for when the projectile hits the ground. There needs to be, like, there's all these different things that to get that out of a library from the get-go, or to, you know, create the framework of how it's going to work yourself. That's a lot to think about, especially if you are just getting into game audio for the first time. Just understanding what the framework is for how things work in a nonlinear way. So Strata, you know, it offers control over some of these aspects, and we leverage the use of Reaper and some custom design tools alongside Reaper to basically make it more seamless, getting your designed sounds or the sounds that are in Strata into the game as quickly as you possibly can.
So you mentioned Reaper. Reaper is one of the more popular digital audio workstations that's used in game audio. Why Reaper? Why did you choose? Why do you think Audiokinetic started with Reaper as the DAW to sort of leverage Strata's power?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first, there's technical reasons. Reaper is probably the most open DAW you can actually develop anything for. But also, Reaper is sort of become almost the sort of standard in game audio to a certain extent, where maybe it's not what you use all the time, but probably a lot of people in game audio have it on their computer. We know internally that 50% of Wwise users are using Reaper. So, you know, it made sense if we're going to do this, you know, we're going to have to focus on one DAW to work with. And so it was an obvious choice.
So having a specific DAW that's fairly open to scripting and to doing some custom behaviors for games opens up some big possibilities. But a lot of our students that are starting the degree program are seeing Pro Tools for the first time, maybe Logic for the first time. And I'm sure they're trying to wrap their heads around what really makes Reaper different. Should we look a little bit at it and see if we can unlock some of those myths?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start. I have, this is a library management software called Soundly Open.
Okay.
So this is going to answer your question directly, like right from the get-go. So it's really not important what all the files and what this material is. Some magic spell sounds from one of the collections, but you know, you can take the sounds that Strata comes with, and you can work with them the same way you would any sound library, right?
Right. Are we mirrored for this stream right now?
You know what? Yeah, let me do that real quick.
We're going to switch a couple settings and make sure that everybody that's watching the stream can see.
Shoot. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so Soundly. If you've never seen this before, it's basically just a way to look at all your sound files without having to go into like the media browser. So this is typically what any sound designer, whether you're in film or games, you're going to be probably using something like this. And it's important to know that, you know, all the sounds can go in here, and you can use it the way you would, like with your regular workflow. Okay, but the idea is that when that time comes, you're like, this sound, I'm going to need to edit this, or I need to parse this out, or I just want to get rid of the whoosh layer in this thing. This is where it becomes a little different. And now here's a perfect reason with why we chose Reaper, is we actually developed, well, there's a extension that we've partnered with Soundly, SoundMiner, and Basshead, basically to where I can open any Strata project in Reaper directly from the library man, like this type of software here. So I can go here, and then I can, I have to find a sound that actually, let me find one that actually is associated with a project. Magic. There we go.
So what you're showing here is a sound file inside of Soundly that in a traditional workflow that wasn't using Strata, you would take this file that you found, bring it into your digital audio workstation, and then start your editing process from there.
Right. So let's see what this is first before I open it. Okay, so this is like the end of a fire absorption spell. So let's say, you know what, I like that, and maybe I just want to change, maybe I want to do something different with that whoosh sound at the end, or maybe I want to see like what this connects to, right?
Right.
Without having to go search for the rest of the files. I can click on it, and with this integration, I can say open associated Reaper project, and then it'll open up the Reaper project that basically, again, I don't want to get too ahead of myself at this point, but, and also I have to zoom out a little bit. So these Reaper projects, they have all of the design work that whoever created the library, whatever contributor, the designer has all these, let me make this window a little bit better to view. They have all the layers of the sound, anything that was used to contribute to the final design of what it was that you clicked on and rendered.
So what you're listening to in Soundly is basically a preview of what the consolidated version or condensed version with all the layers, and now you can go and pick it apart and solo individual layers and recombine things together.
Yes. So here, again, this is, here's the end. So here's the sound I just played, and it'll even cue it up to where it is in the project. All right, so there's the fire spell end sound that we just played, and then.
So how many layers are in that particular composite sound that you're looking at?
We have, this one has, and when we're talking about layers, this color-coded section on the left side.
Mm-hmm.
So most DAWs will have like a parent folder track type of thing going on. So that's what we have here. The way we're defining the layers is by each different color-coded segment. So, so this one has a basic layer, and in fact, here's what I'll do. I'll solo each individual layer. So the basic layer is usually just kind of like the core of the sound. It's not going to have a ton of personality on its own, but it kind of establishes, okay, this is, if you wanted to customize it, you might leave that and then, put your flair on top of that. The details layer, in this case, it's just labeled as end details. So it's just a little bit of additional fire. And actually, again, it's just a little bit hard to zoom in, but. So this is actually a torch whoosh. So
okay.
This is another really cool thing. In Strata, everything, the metadata, all the file naming, when you open these, you can actually see what the person recorded many times. And then that would give you the idea or the inspiration potentially to understand and begin to deconstruct how to do this design work on your own.
So essentially, instead of just having a library that's saying, here are all my magic whooshes, now you can open up and see that there are 4 layers within the one sound, and look and see that one of those layers may be just the fire layer. Right. And be able to see, okay, what is being mixed with the fire layer to create those details that you hear that you may not have known were even a separate sound file.
Yes,
you're just
correct.
Listening to the final composite.
Yeah. And here, I'll just go through the last 2 layers here. This, it doesn't look like there's anything on this track, but there actually is a processing chain. So there's a series of sends that might go out to this.
Interesting.
It's usually some sort of bass enhancer, which I don't know if it's not coming through on my speakers. There might not be anything sending to it for this particular sound, but that track is, it can be used freely throughout the rest of the project to adjust send levels. And then the custom layer, and also good time to point out all the naming convention that you're seeing here. This is consistent across the board. So we have a set of standards like how to name layers. So like if you open up like one of the sci-fi like weapon collections maybe, you're going to see the same sorts of terminal. You're going to immediately understand, okay, even if you've never used Reaper before, you can look at what's here, and as long as you understand a basic DAW functionality, you can solo through things. You can even begin doing your customization by simply mixing, adjusting volume levels. That could be enough sometimes.
Is this using a universal category system way of
Yes.
Naming the sounds?
Yeah.
Do you want to explain a little bit about what UCS is for a student that maybe hasn't seen that before?
Yeah. And maybe if I go back over to Soundly, you can see the actual file naming there, which if you've never seen it before, looks a little wonky. But the idea behind the universal category system, it's the header portion. Well, there's other pieces of it as well, but the actual category portion is the header. So you see an abbreviation for magic element. So this was an initiative started by, it was a community effort, basically to standardize how sound effects libraries are named. Because the biggest, before setting aside what we're doing at Strata, the problem to tackle even before that was, everybody who's using sound libraries has to waste a bunch of time figuring out what the logic of that particular designer is. And it's not like, a lot of them provide good libraries and good content, but it's still, you have to then learn and understand from 50 different creators, like what's going on. So this universal category system is basically an agreement that a lot of library producers have come to conform to, and we've all accepted it as a sort of standard. So it's good for the future moving forward. It'll make using any sound library a lot smoother. So
I imagine having that standard makes it easier to organize things within your DAW, within Reaper. Like when you're setting up these projects, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but how this actually, the sound that you're building here, how it actually connects to Wwise itself, or a game engine itself. I would imagine the naming sort of helps that, so that you can kind of move things over in a clear way.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like coming from a perspective of maybe like a student, that's like, I remember thinking about, okay, what kind of naming conventions should I use? So now you may in time, for different reasons, develop your own conventions for different projects, but at least now there's something presented to you where you can like borrow that logic and then just worry about doing, the creative aspect of whatever it is. And yes, the actual metadata and the names, you can build tools around these because everything's named in the same consistent logic. You can build different custom tools to, randomize sounds that play. This isn't something we've done yet, but you can leverage it.
So the size and scope of Strata seems fairly large. I looked and it seemed like you had, are you up to 45 collections of sounds, and each one of those has...
Yeah, that sounds current. We release a new collection every month.
Every month. And I saw there was a underwater one or something that came out this past month. I know when a lot of our students are using a traditional sound effects library stuff, they'll often get a task of finding something like an explosion. And when they go and search for the explosion, they look and they find out, and maybe there's glass that's shattering within that explosion. And they're looking at something that is exploding in their game, and there's no glass elements to it.
Right.
So what seems to be some of the real power here is the idea that since all of these sounds are in different layers, if you find an explosion you really like and there's a glass layer, you could just mute the one layer out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I actually have it. I don't think I have it with me. I was going to go ahead and open the underwater explosions just to show your point. But yes, if I opened that up, you would see like all the different material components are broken down, so you can just, a lot of times the customization you might need is really just muting something. So you have the chance to scale in how much you want to do.
What about variations? We get here and you've got this great spell, and a lot of times, as you know, for game audio, you need to have the ability to create 3, 4, 5, 10 variations of a sound. What what has Strata done to help you be able to build a series of variations for a sound effect that you maybe don't want to play the exact same way every time you cast a spell in a game?
Yeah, so each individual design sound is it might depend on what the sound library, the collection that we have is, but generally we will have somewhere around 3 to 5 variations of like individually designed, like they're each like kind of carefully put together. It's not just like, spit out from something. I just was trying to find that's the one I'm gonna use. So pulse. So if I were to, I'm just gonna pull up this particular spell. Okay, so pulse start, this is just like the beginning of one of the spells I used in an example. Oh, forgot to unsolo that, my bad. Now, you're also hearing the loop go on underneath there.
Right.
So we can actually see there's, they're separated out by these white composite tracks. So all the start materials there.
So the onset sound is in separate layers than what you're hearing sustaining underneath is a separate set of layers?
Right, yeah. So if I scroll down, you can see there's all the loops inside of there. And then we have pulse start composite 1. So we actually have 3 variations. So you can see 1, 2, and then 3. Now this collection, I did pull it up for this reason, but you see this, the naming convention with composite, and then you also see all these individual layers that I have listed as markers. Now, if I expand this, you can see the layers or those markers up top here. They're all occupying the same space. So this is to expand on just giving you variations. If you wanted to say with this start sound, you have the basic layer, you have details, and then you might have the weight and then a custom layer. What if you wanted to have each one of those layers and its 3 variations, and then you plug that into a random container in Wwise? That gives you an incredible amount of randomization and control.
Got it. So instead of having just 3 variations, you now have 3 different variations for each layer.
Right. And you have the option. So if you just want the composite, that's like, you've mixed it in Reaper, you can stick with that. Or you can take all those layers and you can end up doing your mixing in Wwise in an interactive way.
What about processing on the sounds? Like these sounds sound like they have some kind of signal processing on them. Is that baked into the file, or is that part of the session?
Yeah, it's a good question. So obviously, whatever the designer does, there might be certain things with their source material that's baked in, but other aspects of it, we do use a series of plugins. So we use Enrage, that's Boom's plugin, and all these effects come with the Strata collection. So it's not like a thing where you're like having to go get these plugins separately.
Right.
And we're very careful about what we use. So we're not like going to be looking to add more plugins. We want it to be as simple as possible. So essentially, you get is Enrage, you get the Wwise plugins because that's within our control. We can, if there's something that needs to happen software development wise, we can.
Right. So you stick with most of the stock Reaper plugins plus the couple ones that are bundled.
Right. And just for the sake of time, not diving into the Enrage and all that, but there is something that's really worth pointing out, because obviously, if you wanted to customize beyond doing some basic mixing and maybe adding your own layers, you're looking at a lot of material here to begin with, and it's like that's going to be overwhelming in and of itself. So what we've done with a lot of the Enrage plugins on there, anything that contributes to the design, we actually have set up these Reaper projects operate sort of as an instrument in many cases. So what I mean by that is we have this conspicuous looking track here that's labeled size.
Okay.
So this is essentially a MIDI controller, this track. And with this, I can either make the spell sound bigger or smaller. And then if I want to dig in to see like what exactly is going on under the hood, that's where you go into Enrage. But just to show that a little bit, if it'll. There go. Something might be something might be wrong with this particular. Just because this is my work project, so let me try a different one just for the sake of it.
So this is something you said you could hook up to like a MIDI controller, either a fader or a knob, or a series of them to be able to alter some of the processing on the sound sort of in real time as you're performing?
Yeah.
As you're like testing?
It'll work in real time, yeah. Let me try to find something different just for the sake of it. Let's see. There we go. Let me try that. Okay. Okay, so here's some sci-fi weapons.
Cool.
Here's a better example of the size macro. So that was full, and that medium, and there's small. So, there's some things going on where it'll basically kind of shorten the tail up for you. It'll affect like the bass, the lower frequencies. It just generally kind of manipulate the.
Is this standardized in a way, not to get too far into the woods, but is this standardized in a way where for a student that has like a small, 25 key MIDI controller, that there could be an assignment made so that no matter which Strata project you're in, the same knob could control the first parameter as you're going through? Is it standardized in that way?
You would probably have to go into Reaper and like link your controller to the, because any slider, any button in Reaper, you can link to a controller.
You can link.
So you just have to do that. But otherwise, you can draw. Like if I wanted, I don't know, maybe like this one, maybe I just want that one to be, bigger. Maybe this one's smaller. You can run automation just like that. Now, in here, it's cool for like just adjusting perceived size and quickly getting like a different, a different feel. But where this really is good is also in the ambience collections, because you can, maybe you want the birds to slowly go away. You don't have to go in and edit out the birds, or, you're literally just playing with these macros.
And I saw some of the could be quite a few controls when you get into some of the ambience libraries where you're controlling intensity of whether it's rain or something like that in one of your libraries. It can be significantly more than just having one parameter, right?
Yeah, and it'll look a little crazy when you see it, but ultimately, you just have to, you have the macros and everything's labeled in a way that you're not guessing what it's for. So.
Well, we only have a few minutes left, so maybe can you show how what you do here in Reaper, how that ends up in a game?
Yeah. Let me go back to Absorption Fire, and let's just I'll grab these 4 layers. I'm kind of just picking something arbitrarily. Now, we also have an add-on for Reaper. It's called Wwise, which will allow me to basically communicate with my Wwise project, and instead of having to export the sounds and then drag them in, and I'll do this without going too into the weeds with Wwise and with Wwise itself. But essentially, you have a structure for how the sounds will look once they get in, and this is kind of, let me see if I can. Some of this stuff is really hard to. So. This is what it'll look like inside Wwise, and if I'm happy with that, I can even, customize and save presets, and I'll transfer it. And now, if I go to Wwise, should be right here. So here's all those different layers. Now they're all separated right now. But I could take these and put them inside of a blend container, which will basically make it so I could, they'll all play back simultaneously.
And for students that have taken a sound design for games, for students who have taken a sound design for games course, they will have seen some of these objects before. They will have seen random containers and blend containers and actor mixers here. This should look familiar to you if you've taken one of the first game audio courses.
Yeah, I'm gonna adjust the volume a little bit. So now that's all playing back, totally randomized. And not only that, but depending on what's happening in the game, maybe like something simple like player has low health, or you're building up your like magic power bar, whatever, however you want to think of it. Now you can mix all these things dynamically just from that one sound and how it was prepared.
So instead of it being a single sound, like maybe something that is pre-designed out of a library, now you have the ability to not only change the layers inside of Reaper, but also import those into Wwise as separate layers to be able to do more real-time mixing of those based on game parameters that may be happening.
Yeah, and so here's another cool thing. In theory, this can be done. It's something that we're looking at, but another logical question with these macro tracks is, could I turn that into an RTPC for Wwise?
Right.
It's an idea. We're trying to see if there's
trying to explore those options.
Yeah, I mean it's possible. And at the end of the day, Reaper, it's all the information is there. We can communicate it. So that's something we're thinking about. So
great. Did you want to show any final footage of anything?
Yeah. How much time do I actually have?
We have 5 minutes or so.
Okay, that's plenty of time. Yeah. Here, so I already have good desktop. So just to give you something to connect those sounds to, because I did use these in like a little demo that I just made for myself. So here's the magic spell that I basically synced all that up to inside of Unreal with a Wwise project.
Cool.
This is no sound, just to see what's going on. Right? So this is, again, thinking about this from the perspective of your, student learning, you have to look at what's going on. Okay, there's like a cast, and then it's hitting the ground there, and then this big ice thing comes out of the ground. So these are all different events. Yeah. These are all different events. And I'll show you with the sound, and then we'll go back over to Wwise. Okay. So that's just with the Strata sounds right out of Reaper. I may have done like a little bit of mixing, but at the end of the day, I was just making that just, again, for something that I was trying to learn with Wwise. And if I go into Wwise here, change my layout back to Mixer. So here, rather than go into each of the events, I have everything in the Mixer here. So all my separate random containers are all here. Can't make this any bigger. I'm trying to expand it. It just won't. So here's the end, which we've heard some of these already. There's the loop for the actual object on the ground. And what's this one? There's the loop. I think this is the one I used for when it's traveling through the air, so you don't really hear that so much. But there's a lot of, this is like 6 or 7 different components that just go into what you would think of normally as just like one sound, right?
Right.
So, and yeah, this is I guess one other thing to mention, if you, like, let's say for argument's sake, you are, as a student or anybody, more interested in learning the implementation side and trying to get really good at Wwise.
Yep.
That's really difficult to actually, because you have to spend so much time prepping material that you could actually like go, okay, now I've got the material, now I can actually learn the thing that I want to learn inside of, Wwise and do some interactive stuff. Now you have, for any scenario, you have at least sounds that are gonna play back and work, and they're gonna fill out, the implementation design you're trying to achieve. And you can, whether it's temporary or permanent, you can begin working like that immediately without any delay, just going between the two.
Wow, that's.
I have a rough question.
We have one question. So, from this point, if you wanted to continue to learn about Strata and what it does, as a little bit of a plug for Chase, the Audiokinetic's official YouTube channel features Chase demonstrating all their different collections. And what is that, about once every couple weeks or once a month or so, there's something new from you directly?
Yeah, every month there's a new collection that comes out. And so I do a video to kind of, because as you can see, if you're opening these up for yourself, it wouldn't hurt to have somebody walk you through and get an idea. So yeah, I do one with every new release. They're usually between like 10 and 15 minutes long. It really just depends on what the collection is. I've also done some of the Wwise Up on Air live streams with Damien in the past at Audiokinetic. And so if you like this format, but you want to see me actually, play more with the sounds,
right.
Damien and we have done a lot of these that feel very similar. And then stratalibrary.com, that's it. Easy way to go check it out.
So
There's sample libraries.
Easy ways for students to go and access and see what this is all about. Stratalibrary.com. Go to the YouTube Audiokinetic, and that has collections of videos. And there are some sample projects that you can download if you're interested in right now, right? Aren't there?
Yeah,
a couple examples.
I was just pulling it open. So we have two. I don't know if I have the second one on this machine, but the first one, you get a variety of things from different collections. So here we have some ambience urban, and then we have some creature humanoid designs.
Great. So if a student wants a little bit of a taste of what Strata has to offer, there's some stuff directly on Audiokinetic's website that they can look into. Yeah,
you should definitely, for any other reason, you can use it to help you learn Reaper if that's what your goal is. You can use it commercially. These come with the license, so they're free, but you can use them however you want to, in accordance with the regular terms that you would have with Strata.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chase, so much for coming out and giving a presentation to our students, telling them a little bit about the beginnings of what Strata can be. I'm personally looking forward to seeing where it's headed. All these updates, it sounds like there's some really exciting workflows on the horizon of what you can really do with Strata to rapidly prototype and actually create some final great assets for a game.
Yeah, definitely. It's awesome. I love the breathing room. Speaking from myself, it creates a lot of breathing room for me, so I know that we're doing something good here.
Well, thanks so much, Jason. Thanks for everyone who's enjoyed the stream today. And the archive of this will be posted and probably used in some classes. We'll see some use from Strata in the future. So great to have you.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thanks, everybody.